What is up? My name is Lloyd and this is the Middle Call, which are my takes on the world of professional wrestling and all of its ins and outs. Let's go.
Round 1. Fight!
So these are my AEW Full Gear 2022 predictions. And can I finally run the gauntlet and call a perfect pay-per-view as far as the results? I don't know, but you know what? Let's get into it. First up, we have Jarrett and Jay Lethal versus Darby, Allin, and Sting. Calling this just straightforward. I think it has to be Darby, Allin, and Sting. We haven't seen Sting in a while. It'd be a hell of a disappointment if he came back and lost this match. Also, Jarrett's been running his mouth for far too long, for too many weeks. He needs to go and do his job behind the scenes in AEW. And so I can't think of a better way by putting him in a Scorpion Deathlock and having him tap out. Okay, so moving on. Next up, we have champion versus champion, as we have TBS champion Nyla Rose versus TBS champion Jade Cargill. Not really, but I've been enjoying this whole Nyla and Jade story. Basically, if you want a title shot, steal the title until the champion gives you a title match. Either way, obviously I'm going with Jade Cargill. I don't think that Nyla will be the one to beat her. Once I spot that person, I'll be the first person on it. But as for right now, Jade Cargill retains the TBS Women's Championship. So, moving on. Next up, for the TNT Championship, we have Samoa Joe, the ROH Television Champion, versus Powerhouse Hobbes versus Wardlow. I'm looking forward to this match, of course, because just three big guys, all very athletic and mobile in their own right, all very dangerous in their own right, getting together and just having an intense match, hard hitting, throwing each other around, all for it. All that being said, I think Wardlow has to win. I think it's pretty straightforward. I can't see any other result happening other than that. But it should be entertaining, but I don't think they're ready to take that strap off of him as of yet. So that's it. Wardlow. Next up, we have Jungle Boy Jack Perry versus Luchasaurus in a steel cage. Jack Perry has already lost to Christian Cage. He's already lost to Luchasaurus. I think it's time we get a win. And you know what? My WWE conditioning would automatically tell me that something's gonna go wonky in that cage and somehow Christian Cage is gonna get in and help Luchasaurus get the win. I think AEW will tell the story of the cage actually being able to keep somebody out, and I think Jack Perry, Jungle Boy, is going to get that win. Very straightforward. Okay, moving on. Next up, for the ROH World Championship, we have the American Dragon Bryan Danielson versus Claudio Castignoli versus Sammy Guevara versus Jericho, Chris Jericho, the ROH World Champion. I can't see them taking the title off of Chris Jericho right now. He's my pick to win this. It wouldn't make any sense because he's going through this whole thing of beating every single ROH World Champion. We're not ready to end that just yet. It's been a lot of fun as far as I can tell, if you ask me. So that's my pick. Very straightforward. Chris Jericho goes on to retain the ROH World Heavyweight Championship. Okay, so moving on. Next up, we have Swerve in Our Glory versus the Acclaimed 3 for the AEW World Tag Team Championships. Okay, so this is an interesting one and one of the ones I had difficulty with. So you have the Acclaimed, probably one of the most over groups in AEW versus Swerve in Our Glory. How do I call this? We could see a couple of things here. So the Acclaimed could win, and we finally get the end of the story between Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee, because they're both individual competitors. Or we could see Keith Lee actually do a heel turn and just be in sync with Swerve. So Keith Lee could actually do some cheating in the end in order to beat the Acclaimed. Everything else seems to be a pretty straightforward result so far. So I am going to call Swerve in Our Glory beating the Acclaimed, and Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland are on the same page. That's what I'm calling. I'm calling New World Tag Team Champions. I'm not sure about this, but we're gonna find out together, I guess. And so moving on. So next up, we have Dr. Britt Baker, DMD versus Saraya. Okay, so right out the gate, I don't think there's any way that Saraya, in her first match in 5 years, could possibly lose this match. Considering what she's been through, considering, as she dictated in her promo, about her drug addiction, about her humiliation, about everything that's gone on in her life, that she could come back and lose this match. Now, what will be interesting will be how the match plays out afterwards. Could we see a Dr. Britt Baker face turn? Will that have an effect on the AEW Women's Championship match? All that being said, I've made my call. It's gotta be Saraya. There's no way Saraya could go 0-1 and lose her first match in AEW. So, moving on. Next up, we have the World Trios Championships, as we have the Death Triangle versus the returning Elite. Honestly, I think we're seeing a little bit of an implosion with Death Triangle, as they seem to be having differences in philosophy. I mean, Pac was handed a hammer once, and ever since then, he can't seem to go anywhere without it. Either way, Death Triangle versus the returning Elite, I can't see the Elite coming back and then losing their first match back. I think this is something to basically correct the timeline, basically reverse history, bring everything back to as it was, and set that course along. I think they still have a story to tell. Can't tell that story with Death Triangle, so you have to go and correct the storyline and have the Elite win this match. So I'm going with the Elite. Moving on. Next up, for the AEW Interim Women's Championship, we have Toni Storm versus Jamie Hayter. I can't see any timeline in which Jamie Hayter wins the AEW Women's Championship now. I believe she is a future AEW Women's Champion. I don't believe that happens now. I believe Toni Storm will get that win. And I believe that somehow this is going to play out and cause a big divide between Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker. So that's my pick. I'm unsure about it because it could go the other way as well. We could get a Jamie Hayter victory, and then that causes the rift between Jamie and Britt, as you know, everybody wants to be the top person, right? However, I've made my call. I'm sticking with it. Said it in the beginning. I'm unsure. I almost talked myself out of it. But, okay. We're doing Toni Storm. She's going to retain the interim AEW Women's Championship, and hopefully we get a Thunder Rosa sighting, and we'll finally get the actual AEW Women's Champion undisputed. Moving on. Next up, it's time for the main event for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. We have Jon Moxley versus Maxwell Jacob Friedman, MJF. Honestly, I can only see one result happening. I think everybody sees it as well. I think MJF is going to become the AEW World Heavyweight Champion. There's a lot of reasons. I really don't want to take up too much time going through them all. But one reason would be that Jon Moxley was supposed to go on vacation and then had to delay his vacation because of that situation, and that altercation was CM Punk and the Elite. So there's that. So Jon Moxley's finally going to get his break. Beyond that, I feel like a lot of things are going to play out. MJF's been calling himself the devil, even though he's been turning himself babyface. I think that finally we are going to see the devil. I don't know how that's going to play out. I don't know if that means that his relationship with the firm becomes reestablished, basically. I don't know if there is a turn and William Regal actually turns on the Blackpool Combat Club and betrays Jon Moxley. Could go either way. I think we're going to see some drama play out, but the end result is, I believe that MJF is going to be the AEW World Heavyweight Champion, which is going to be interesting because where we have Jon Moxley, who was basically riding the roads and defending this title and doing title contender matches every week, MJF don't like to wrestle. So we're going to see how all that plays out. Either way, that brings an end to my AEW 2022 Full Gear predictions. Will I run the gauntlet finally? Will I get them all right? Man, we shall see. Either way, let's go.